welcome back to the channel. Thanks for joining me again. In today's video I've come to Scaleber waterfall in North Yorkshire. It's about a 10-minute drive outside of the village of Malham, and I just thought I'd come down here today just to try and capture some of the sort of waterfalls. We've had quite a lot of rain over the last couple of weeks and months, and it's been the first sort of dry day we've had to be able to get out with the camera really, and we just thought I'd come down and try and capture some of the sort of rapids and waterfalls, because obviously they're looking quite impressive at the moment, as you can see by that B-roll with all the rain that we've had. So last time I came here was back in the summer, a couple of years ago, so obviously it was a little bit different there. The flow was a lot lower, like a bit of a trickle, and obviously the foliage are out in green then, all nice and green. Today obviously it's a little bit different, so it should provide some opportunity to get some different shots, because obviously the flow is a lot bigger, and obviously with no foliage it's looking a little bit different as well. So it should be quite an interesting shoot this, so I'll get down there and have a look and see what compositions I can come up with. So I'm going to make my way down the path now, and when I find my first composition I'll talk you through what I've got. As you can see now, I'm down at the bottom of the waterfall. It's looking really good this. It's got all these sort of layered rock in the foreground here. There's a big old tree trunk as well there. I think that'll make some really nice foreground interest. So you can have a look around now, maybe get down to this little plateau down here and use that as like a shooting up sort of vantage point from there. So that looks pretty good. So yeah, I'm going to have a scout round now, just try and get down there safely. I mean, this path coming down here is like an ice rink with all the mud, so take my time, just get down there, get set up, and then I'll talk you through what I've got. Okay, hopefully you can hear me all right over the raging water now, because it is really flowing down here at the base of the waterfall. I've set up my first composition. It's a landscape shot, and it's just basically going to capture the entire scene as it's laid out basically. It's thought it'd be a good idea just to get that sort of first establishing shot and just try and capture the scene as a whole as it is, and then try and get a little bit more creative. I've got the wellies on today, so I'm going to head out into the stream here and try and use some of these rocks in the foreground, and also capture some of the bubbles that are coming off here. I'm going to try and capture some swirls in the water. I think that's really interesting. It makes a good foreground, so I'm going to try and do some of that as well. So yeah, I'll put this first shot on for you now. I've got the ND filter on and polarizer. Even though it is quite cloudy today, it's quite bright, and it's like a giant softbox over the whole scene, and basically it is sort of creating a lot of highlights in the water. So I've got the polarizer on just to try and take off some of that sheen and reflection. Like I said, I've also got the ND filter on as well, roughly around 6 to 7 at the moment, so that's producing about a sort of 20-second exposure. But again, like I always do with water, I'm going to take loads of different shutter speeds, using a long exposure of like 20 seconds, and then try and capture something a little bit quicker, maybe half a second to 1 second, try and capture some of the detail in the sort of waterfall itself. But yeah, I think it'll be good to play around with different shutter speeds and just try and capture some of the detail in the water. Like I said before, there is quite a lot of bubbles and stuff in the water there, so it's looking pretty good in creating some nice swirls in the water. So I'll put that shot on screen for you now, and then I'll have a look around and see if I can come up with anything else. So as you can see there, I've come as far back as possibly can. I mean, I'm hanging on the edge of this sort of ledge here, and I'm just trying to include as much of the waterfall scene as I can, getting all these rapids in the foreground here. There's a nice swirling sort of circle of bubbles there in the foreground. That looks pretty nice. I've tried to include this old fallen tree here as well, and the light coming through from the top of the waterfall onto the side of the canyon is looking pretty good as well. So I think this makes quite a good scene. I managed to capture everything nicely. There's plenty of room around the outside as well. That first composition I took over there was a little bit tight, and I like to leave a little bit more room on the edge of the frame there. So I think this looks a better shot now, and now that I'm stood in the river, being able to get that vantage point, just move around to obviously get the shot that I want. So I'll put that on screen for you now, and I'm going to head up along the sides here and see if I can get a little bit closer to the sort of main waterfall in the background there, and this tree here. Where is it there? Get the roots of that and try and get a little bit of a tighter composition on that. Okay, so as you can see here, I've come up with a nice little composition of this old sort of tree stump here, using that as like the subject, and I really like the waterfalls that are sort of cascading off into the image itself and towards the subject there. It's creating some really nice swirls in the foreground here. So I'm taking different shutter speeds, anywhere from like 20 seconds all the way down to like half a second. The 20-second ones are really capturing the swirls in the bottom there, and then the half-second exposures are capturing all the detail in the actual waterfall themselves. And the light's looking really nice now. It's coming down, it's kind of making this sort of tree stump all stand out. It's capturing all the detail and the texture and the colour in there. And the polarizer again is just making the colours really pop in the sort of browns and greens of the sort of waterfall and the tree stump there. So it looks quite a nice images. So if it turns out nicely, I'll put it on screen for you now. As you can see now, I've come a lot closer to the waterfall, and I'm trying to get a little bit more detail in this sort of foreground rock here, all these layers. Provides really nice steps going up into the image towards that tree trunk at the top there, which is like the sort of main subject to the image. And the waterfall looks really nice as well, so it's kind of sweeping round through the whole image, so that looks really nice. Again, just I'm taking different shutter speeds, just trying to capture the detail in the waterfall this time, because there is no sort of plunge pool area where there's any kind of bubbles forming circles or anything, so it's all about the actual falls themselves. So I'm going to be using anywhere between sort of like half a second down to 4 seconds on this one, again just to try and capture a little bit of that detail. So yeah, I think this looks quite nice. It's a little bit more interesting, a little bit more detailed, so I'll put that on screen for you now, and then I'm going to have a look around and see if we can get anything else. Yeah, I really like this image, and I might have a go at putting it into black and white. I just really like the contrast between the sort of white water and the sort of shadow detail in the sort of trunk and the rocks. I think it looks really good. The way it's sort of intertwined, the sort of highlights wrap around the shadows there as the water comes down through the waterfall and wraps around the tree. I think it looks really interesting, so it might look good in black and white this. So I'll put both images on screen for you, the black and white and the colour, and if you let me know down in the comments which you prefer. Okay, so for this next image I've got down really low in the water, and I'm trying to emphasise the sort of like bubbles running through the plunge pool here. I'm trying to capture these streaks going through and leading up to the waterfall itself. Now here I'm taking two sets of images. I'm taking like a longer sort of 7, 8, 9 second exposure for the sort of bubbles in the water, and then I'm taking like half a second to 4 second exposures for the waterfall itself, because I want to try and capture some of the detail in the waterfall but still have the sort of like lines of the bubbles in the foreground here, and then I'll probably blend those two sections together, and I think that'll make the best sort of image. If you're trying to do the longer exposure with the bubbles, it's kind of leaving like really big streaks through the image, which kind of like lose all the detail of what they actually are. So I think it's going to be better to try and do sort of two sets of images with the different shutter speeds and then blend them together afterwards. Now like I said, I'm doing like a bit of a pano here, so because obviously the waterfall is quite tall as well, the portrait orientation works better. It's being able to capture more of the waterfalls. It's quite tall here, and I'm quite low down as well, so it works better that way. I'm taking about 4 or 5 shots going across just to try and get the whole scene in as well, because as you can see it's quite a wide waterfall this at the bottom here, the plunge pool, so I'm trying to get everything into sort of one image. So I'm going to have to do a pano and sort of blend those together. So I'll probably do 2 panos of the different shutter speeds and then blend the top half and the bottom half of each of the different ones, if you know what I mean. And yeah, if that turns out alright, I'll put that on screen for you now. And yeah, we're just going to have a look around and see if we can come up with a little bit more intimate shots of the waterfall itself. Gary Goff did quite a good video the other day with the sort of waterfall photography. Kind of used the long lens to try and zoom into a particular part of the waterfall and try and capture some of the detail. So I might have a go at that myself and try and come up with some interesting shots. So I'll have a look around now and I'll put you back on once I've found something. Okay, so as you can see here, I'm right up against the waterfall here, just at the edge of the plunge pool, and I thought I'd make a really interesting shot. This is a bit of a different perspective to what I've been shooting over there. So got underneath this rock ledge and using it as kind of like a leading line up to these sort of waterfalls here that are coming into the plunge pool. And if we're just spinning around the other way, again there you can see the sort of swirl of bubbles again in the foreground there, using that as kind of like the focal point of the image. And again, taking different shutter speeds as this kind of breaks up this sort of patch of bubbles, it's creating different patterns in the water. And yeah, so I'm going to have a look around now and take some more intimate shots of the waterfall, just concentrating on the detail within the water. So I'm not going to film all those, but I'll put all them images on for you in a minute. Okay, so I'm going to end the video there. Really hope you've enjoyed this week's video and the images that I've taken. It's been really good just to revisit this location. Like I said, the last time I was here back in the summer, the flow was not even 10% of what it is today. But it has been quite challenging, I think. I prefer it with the foliage, especially going into the autumn time when you've got the colour as well. I think it looks really good. But yeah, it has been good just to see the different sort of flows of water and how it's increased over this sort of wet period. So if you have enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the like and share button. It really does mean a lot and it'll help the channel grow. And until the next time, bye for now.